You know, when I tell people I'm a minister, the number one question that I get asked is, are you a Christian minister? Are you a Christian faith? Do you belong to a Christian church? And my answer to them is always the same. Tell me what you think a Christian is. Our movement is actually considered New Thought. The religion is called New Thought. It became an official religion in 2015 at the Parliament of World Religions in Salt Lake City, when 10,000 people from different religious faith traditions, 80 different religious traditions come together, usually every year, to hold a parliament where they talk about issues from the different faith traditions' point of view. And so, as I said, we were officially recognized. New Thought encompasses other religions such as Unity, other denominations, such as Unity. There's a lot of independent New Thought churches like Agape, which are in California. There's several different Agape centers in California, and I believe they've got a satellite center in Texas as well. It also includes a religion called Divine Science, which Divine Science and Unity and religious science, which we practice, all have their roots in the same teacher. They called her the teacher of teachers, Emma Curtis Hopkins, and she trained the founders of all three religions in her version of the New Thought philosophy that she practiced. It also has its roots from the Transcendentalist. Back in the early 1800s in New England, people like Ralph Waldo Emerson, Henry David Thoreau, Bronson Alcott, and his daughter, you might have heard of her, Louisa May Alcott, were all part of a movement to get to a deeper consciousness about what spirit is. And so when our founder, Ernest Holmes, first read Ralph Waldo Emerson's books, he was 15 years old, and he describes it as drinking water for the first time. Can you imagine how refreshing something must be if you describe it as drinking water for the first time? So we have our roots in all of these different people that have come before us. Often you might hear us called New Thought, Ancient Wisdom, because it's based on not only from the Transcendentalist in the 1800s, but it goes back into the works of the Hindus. Many of their Upanishads and Vedas and different spiritual texts influenced Ernest Holmes in great ways. So you'll find threads of all of those religions coming through also. Ernest found what he called the golden threads of truth in each religion and brought those to bring together for his philosophy that he called Science of Mind. And so this is what all of this is to get you to the point of understanding what it is we believe about Christmas and about Jesus. And so this is, the season that we celebrate the birth of the man, Jesus Christ. But he was a man. He wasn't the exception, he was the example of how to live in conscious union with Spirit. He was an exceptional man, but he wasn't the only one who was able to do this. So Ernest has a quote from the Science of Mind magazine that I want to share with you here. It says, God, the living Spirit Almighty, never had only one child. The Holy Child is being born in every season, in every place, through all races, and in all nations. Every birth is a divine event. Every conception is immaculate. Every child who is born into the world represents the child of the eternal parent. So in this idea of Christmas here, we begin with that idea of Jesus, the man who was born in a little town in Bethlehem, probably not in December, because if the historians are right, they were they had to go to Bethlehem for tax purposes, and that happened in the springtime, not in the wintertime in that part of the world. And so more than likely he was born sometime in March. But we have now taken the ideas from other religions and brought them together to create what we call Christmas. Christmas happens around the same time as the winter solstice, which is very much an earth-based spiritual tradition of celebrating the return of the light. The Christ, the word Christ itself, means the illumined one. And so the return of the light to the world, bringing Jesus as the Christ consciousness in, was very logical to the early Christians who were trying to decide when to celebrate the birth of this man, Jesus. And so in our New Thought teachings, we recognize Jesus not only as this historical figure, this man, but as a symbol of the Christ consciousness. The Christ consciousness, though, is available to everyone. We here in Centers for Spiritual Living focus more on the consciousness than on the man Jesus. We don't worship the man Jesus, which is what most Christian religions do. So when I get asked that question, are you Christian? Most often people respond to me when I ask them, what do you mean by Christian? Well, Jesus is my Lord and Savior. And I said, well, honestly, I don't need a Lord or a Savior. So that doesn't work for me to be under your definition of Christian there. However, I believe that Jesus existed and was a wonderful example of how to live in conscious union with Spirit. So this idea is, Christmas for us is a celebration of the divine potential that is possible in every single one of us. The divine light of consciousness that can be illumined in every single one of us as we go into it. But let's take a look at some of the symbols for Christmas here and look at them from our point of view. So the first thing we have is this nativity story where Jesus is being born in this humble manger. For us, this symbolizes that the Christ consciousness is not birthed in grandeur. It's not birthed in worldly power. It is not available to only a few select people, but it is available to everyone. It is available to us, and it is very simple, and it is a very humble experience for each one of us. And more than that, it's a very pure experience. This baby child here, you know, babies often symbolize purity in our world. That newborn life that has not yet been tainted by any of the things in the world. And so we recognize that pure love, that pure light that is being brought into the world in this part. This reminds us that our spiritual awakening often begins very quietly. It begins in the stillness of our hearts. It begins when we feel humility, when we feel humble, when we feel like there's power out there that's greater than us, a power that moves through us, a power that is showing up in all of the things that we do in our life. When we begin to understand that there is something greater than my own personal ego, then we are being birthed as that Christ consciousness. And so then we look at that light of Bethlehem, the star of guidance here. We think of this as the star that guides us, that light that burns within each one of us. So this radiant star in the traditional stories guided the wise men to the child, the Christ child there. So metaphysically, we think that this star symbolizes our own inner guidance, the divine intuition that leads us on our spiritual journey. As we begin to take time and contemplate and get out of our own ego and realize that there is this wonderful light that is being birthed within us that can actually guide us throughout the rest of our journey here, we begin to have a different experience. So these wise men followed this star with faith, with determination, just as we are called to follow our own inner guidance, with faith, with that consistent practice, with that understanding that this is leading us to a greater experience of our highest good. And then we have the three wise men here, the journey of the three wise men, or the Magi. This brings another layer of metaphysical meaning into our story. They traveled a great distance, facing unknowns, to honor this Christ consciousness. Their journey symbolizes our own spiritual quest. Their journey was difficult. Oftentimes, our spiritual journey is difficult. I often say that transformation doesn't happen in our comfort zone. So sometimes we have to stir things up for us to actually begin to see that light of consciousness. And so They brought gifts with them. They brought gold, frankincense, myrrh. These can be seen as metaphors for the treasures that we offer to the divine self. So the gold represents our highest values, those things that we are striving for, the things that we believe and hold dear in our hearts. Frankincense symbolizes our devotion and our spiritual practices that we do. Frankincense is a very earthy smelling oil, and it connects us and grounds us and enlivens our spiritual practices. And then myrrh. Myrrh reminds us of the eternal nature of our soul, that we are constantly evolving, constantly on this ever upward spiral of evolution as we discover more and more of our own Christ consciousness. So these magi teach us that the journey to awakening is not always easy. It requires faith and perseverance and a willingness to move beyond the familiar. But the destination is our realization of our divine nature, and it is absolutely worth every step we have to take. So the next symbol is the shepherds and the angels. In the Nativity story, the angels announce the birth of the Christ to the shepherds, who then go to witness this miracle. So the shepherds represent that part of us that is watchful and receptive, tending to the fields of our consciousness. You know, one of the symbols of our faith is what we call the creative process, and it's often described in a seed, soil, and plant analogy, where we take an idea and we plant it, and then we have to tend it. We have to clear away the things that are blocking the growth of that seed, and we add wonderful things to it, spiritual practices and so forth, and then we watch it blossom in our lives. The shepherds are doing the same thing. They are tending to their flock, nurturing them as they are growing up to have that fullest expression of them. And the angels symbolize the divine messages that we can receive, the whispers of spirit that encourage us to do our practices, encourage us to take a chance on belief, and encourage us to develop a deeper faith and deeper understanding. They are the ways that we celebrate the Christ within by listening and taking heed to the guidance that is given to us. Come on. Sorry about that. My thing would stop. Okay. This part of the story, this part of the shepherd and the angels, reminds us to stay open, to stay vigilant, to keep a watchful eye out, that Spirit is always speaking to us and guiding us towards our spiritual awakening. It is often in these quiet and simple moments, like the shepherds experienced that night in their field. We feel the presence of the divine most clearly when we can be silent, when we can be still, when there's nothing else going around. Spirit speaks loudly to us. And then we have the birth of the light. As I said before, the word Christ in Greek means the illumined one. And so it's all about the light. And just like the winter solstice is about the return of the light, here we're looking at Christmas as the birth of the light of consciousness that's in each one of us. So Christmas takes place during this winter solstice. This is the time when the days are the darkest, when things look the worst. Back in the ancient days, people didn't understand why it got dark all of a sudden and why it stayed dark for such a long time, and they were a little worried that the light might not come back. And so when the days started to grow longer, they created celebrations around that because the light was returning. Because in those days, of course, light meant warmth. And without the sun coming in, we didn't stay warm, our plants didn't grow, we didn't thrive very well in the world. So it was a big celebration of the return of the light. And so it's very logical that Christmas be placed at this time of the winter solstice. So it's the celebration of the light's return. So metaphysically, this speaks to the rebirth of the inner light within each one of us, that divine spark that can never be extinguished. No matter how dark life circumstances appear, there is always that inner light. If we can just get still enough and listen to it deeply enough, like the shepherds were doing to the angels, listen and hear the voice of Spirit and find the guidance that's there within you. So no matter how dark it is, the light is going to return. So when we celebrate Christmas, we are affirming our triumph of light over darkness, of love over fear, of unity over separation. We are reminded that the light of the Spirit is always present within us, and that it is our sacred duty to let this light shine brightly in the world. It is our sacred duty to let the light that is within us pour forth in expression. And each one of us does it beautifully. Each one of us does it perfectly. It is absolutely designed just for you individually to allow your light to shine in a way that is most perfect and right for you. And so the living Christmas spirit, living that on a daily basis. As we embrace this metaphysical meaning of Christmas, we realize that it's not just a story to be remembered, but it's an experience to be lived. To allow this light to come forth from us is what we're here for. We are here to remember that we are connected to Spirit always. We are here to remember that that light resides within us all the time. The Christ consciousness calls us to embody qualities of love, compassion, forgiveness, generosity. It calls us to engage in acts of kindness. Each moment we have an opportunity to be a little bit more grace in action. It becomes a way of birthing the Christ anew in our life each and every day. If we can remember to bring that back, we can remember to live from that point of view. And this season invites us to ask some questions. It invites us to ask, how can I more fully express the Christ within? How can I more fully be that expression, that light of consciousness? How can I bring the light of love and understanding to those around me? In other words, it's a gift for me to share. As Jesus says, no light should be put under a basket. We don't hide our light from others. It's out there for us to share, to show, to be the way shower for other people around us, just as Jesus was the way shower for so many. And it asks us to consider, how can I honor the divine presence that is in every being? How can I acknowledge the light of consciousness that's in everyone, especially when it appears to be diminished? Sometimes it's a challenge to look at someone that you're having a conflict with and see the light of consciousness in them. But we always have that opportunity to remind ourselves that we are here to bring love, to bring peace, to bring joy to the world, to let our light shine. I want to close with one more quote from Ernest Holmes here. To carry peace, love, and givingness to everyone is the meaning of Christmas. To carry peace, love, and givingness to everyone is the meaning of Christmas. To feel that we are all a part of this divine offering is to enter into the spirit of the birth of the Christ in the human mind and heart. Christmas is not merely a historical event or a cultural celebration. It's not just for Christians. It's a sacred reminder of the divine potential that's within each one of us. It's an invitation to awaken to our highest truth, to let the Christ light shine through us onto everything that we do. And so as we move through this season, may we remember the true gift of Christmas. And that true gift is the recognition of our own divinity, the recognition of the Christ consciousness within each one of us. It is our opportunity for us to share that light with the world. So let us celebrate not just the birth of a child in Bethlehem so many years ago, but the birth of love, peace, and joy within our own hearts. May your Christmas be filled with the blessings of Spirit and the radiant light of the Christ within. Let's take this into prayer. I invite our spiritual practitioners to stand and surround us. I asked Justin to play one of our favorites here. And so we just simply turn within to that place in consciousness, that place where that light dwells, that place that radiates and fills us with warmth, the glow of connection, the glow of unity, the glow of oneness, the glow of the Christ consciousness within. And I know that from this place of deep connection, that there is only this one power, this one presence, this one divine, creative love intelligence. This one that is forever pouring itself forth in all creation. This eternal, divine, spiritual parent of us all. I know that that divine one has brought me into existence. I know that it is living its life through me right here and right now. I know that I am that perfect emanation of a love so powerful it could do nothing but create more of itself. And as I know this is true for me, I know this is true for everyone. That we are all, each, a unique and perfect vessel of a love and a power and a glory so magnificent that it is shining itself forth through each and every one of us. And so I know that as we move into this time of celebration, this time of seasonal joy, this time of connection with friends and family, that Christ consciousness, that light, that divine guidance goes before us, shining itself on everyone we meet, in every activity that we do. For that presence of the one cannot be diminished. It is willing and ready to burst forth from each one of us so perfectly, so uniquely, and so divinely. I am so grateful to see this light shining all over the world, to see it in the face of everyone I meet, to know that it is the action and the activity of all creation. And I just release this word into the law, into that creative love intelligence that knows no limits, that cannot be contained. I let it go and I let it be. And together we say, and so it is.